So I hope you guys had all of you got the marks for the quiz. I hope, because Classmarker automatically sends it out. I think most people should have got it yesterday.
Yes, sir, we got it.
Yeah, if you want, we can. I mean, like I thought, we'll spend some time discussing the quiz a little bit today, and then we'll see. And if you have any questions, you can clarify it now. Okay, so I'll share with you the statistics also. How was the quiz? Did you find it difficult?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
It was difficult. What was difficult?
Moderate kind of. It was.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, in 15 minutes, how much can you do? So I don't give like very questions which you have to work out and all that. No, I think it is fairly, maybe 2-3 lines of code will give you the answer in some cases. Anyway, we'll discuss. If you have any queries, we can discuss them now. But I'm planning to keep quizzes at this level. Okay. And I got a lot of emails from various people. Some of them are related to some doubts in the question that we'll discuss today, and somebody wanted to know is there any differential weighing for the quizzes? Like, is one if one quiz is more difficult, can we give more weight to that quiz? No, I'm not planning any of that. We'll just have it simple. So the 4 quizzes, let's say we are planning 4 quizzes, and that means 40 marks. So whatever you get out of those quizzes will be read, and that will constitute 40 marks. We will try to have more quizzes that I don't know now, but we will see. Fine.
Sir, what is the average of this quiz?
Yeah, I will tell you that. Fine. So is my screen shared? Yes, screen shared. Hold on.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Your
so
screen
we'll
is.
discuss. Yeah, so we'll discuss a little bit about this. So I'll start with some statistics. Class average was 2.8 out of 8, 34%, which is kind of low, I would say. Minimum, maximum is 6. Okay, so this was the statistics. So there is negative marking and partial marking. For example, I'm not exactly sure how Classmarker does it, but from my understanding is that if in a multiple, see, the negative and partial marking is mostly for the multiple choice answers. Okay, only then have partial marking and negative marking. So if there are 2 choices, let's say A, B, C, D, there are 4 choices in the answer A, C, D, out of which B are correct. So then A gets half a mark, B gets half a mark, because each question carries 1 mark. So if you choose both the correct options A and B, then 0.5 plus 0.5, you'll get 1 mark for that question. If you choose A and C, for example, then you will get 0.5 minus 0.5, you'll get 0. That is how I think Classmarker does it. Fine. So let's go. One of the questions was this. This is an algorithm, right? I've written it in pseudocode. So what was the question? Yeah, first you think about this. So this algorithm actually came in 2 questions. One was asking you to see how to make it more efficient, and in another question I asked what is the purpose of this algorithm. Okay, so it is not very difficult. So you get into the habit of reading pseudocode. So you're accepting an integer from the user. In steps 2 and 3, you are checking if n is even. If n is even, you're 2. Immediately that should give you an idea what the algorithm is doing. right? If you are taking an integer from the user, you check if it is even integer. If it is even, you're saying you're going to return 2. So what does it mean? Okay, so if it is
Its
not even,
lowest
then you
prime
go
factor,
inside.
maybe.
I can't hear. What?
Is its lowest prime factor?
Yeah, not necessarily prime factor, lowest factor. It's actually finding out the lowest factor, the smallest factor, or the least divisor. Else you have to check limit. Actually, the limit is square root of n. For example, if you want to check if a number is prime, if some number is given to you and you want to check if it is prime, till how many you must divisor one after the other. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. But you don't have to, if it is given, n is given to you, you don't have to go more than root n to check it's prime or not. For example, if 51 is given to you, you don't have to check more than 8, because there will be a factor. If the number is not, there will be a factor which is less, which will be there within the square root of n. So a large part of the search space will get reduced. Okay. Anyway, I've not asked you all those details. I'm not asking you to come up with an efficient algorithm or anything here. I want you to understand the algorithm. So that limit of checking is already given here. I've already said it. You're checking up to r. Then you're putting d is 3. D is a counter. Okay, that's what you have put inside this loop. And then you are dividing n by 3 and checking for the remainder. You start with that first value 3, and d is less than r. That r is the limit. Then you keep doing d is equal to d plus 1. Okay, so you start with 3, check if it is divisible by 3, check if it is divisible by 4, 5, 6, so on up to the square root of n. And at some point, if this loop stops anywhere, that means either it is divided by some d, or d has exceeded r, then you come out, but you don't know which condition it is, so you have to check. So if it is if the division is exact by d, then you say that d is the divisor. Or if it has reached the square root, then it means it's a prime number, so you're returning 1. Okay, so you're just checking the divisors. Now, of course, we are starting from the lowest number. Checked with 2 first. 1 anyway we are not checking. We checked with 2, then we started with 3. So we are going from the lower end. So we are finding the least divisor, or the lowest factor. It need not be a prime factor, but okay. So the question was how to make it more efficient. Can you mute your mic, whoever is talking? Whoever is yeah. So the question was how to make it more efficient. So immediately you can see the line. It is see how are we doing? We are starting with 3, right? Then it is doing d equal to d plus 1. So 3. Then we are checking 4. Then we are checking 5. Then 6. Then 7, and so on. Already checked if it is an even number or not. So if it is divisible by 2, or if it is not an even number, only then you come here. Then there is no need to check for any even numbers. You don't need to check if it is divisor of any even number, divisible by any even number. So if you start with 3, you don't have to check for 4, because you already know that it is not divisible by 2. So that means it would not be divisible by 4, by 6, by 8. So this loop, this 8, you can make it d is equal to d plus 2. You only need to check odd numbers. So the number of comparisons will actually get halved. So that is how you can make it more efficient. D should be plus 2, because since you already know that it is not divisible by 2, you don't have to check divisibility by any other even number. Is it clear?
So, sir, 9th and 11th if else, shouldn't it come under the while loop?
No, 9 and 11 is outside the while loop. While is only there's only one line in the while loop. That is clear, right? This also shows that this is the this else is from here to here. While only contains d is equal to d plus 1, and it is checking this condition, of course.
Okay, sir.
Sir, could you
So you make it
please
d is equal to d
highlight
plus 2. These were the options. You must speak louder. I can't hear you.
Sir, in the 9th and 11th, that indentation should be there. Could you please again tell?
This is not Python. I'm not writing Python code. This is pseudocode. Indentation is not there. It is telling you which are the different blocks. Those vertical lines will help you determine the blocks. This is pseudocode.
Understood, sir. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions on this? So you can implement it and see, and you can try to give it some large numbers and see how much time it takes. Fine. So you can translate this into Python, and you can see. Actually, factoring of integers is a difficult problem. Okay, difficult in the sense, I mean, like for small numbers, it is fine. Even this algorithm will work fast. But if you give it really big numbers with some 80, 90 digits, then factorization of numbers is difficult. And where is it used? Can somebody tell me? So this algorithm is telling you the smallest factor. So many algorithms are there. If you are given a number, you want to find out all its factors, and typically they are all prime factors. If you want to find its factors, where is it used? What is the application? Any ideas, anyone?
To check for prime number.
Divide them into that number of groups, maybe.
Bit?
Divide the data into that number of groups.
The application, where used? In cryptography. In cryptography, your browser, when you log into your internet banking or wherever you secure access, all cryptographic algorithms are based on number factorization. You think of two very large random numbers, and the strength of the cryptography is because factorizing large numbers is a hard problem. It is computationally hard, so nobody can brute force algorithm. This algorithm is basically a brute force algorithm, whatever we have shown here, because it is checking all the options one after the other. And so if you give very large numbers, this algorithm will not work. I mean, it will take too much time. Okay, so for cryptography, the strength of cryptography relies on the fact that it is difficult to factorize prime numbers. I mean, to factorize numbers. To find out the different factors of a number is difficult, and it is practically not possible to do it for large numbers. So all your cryptographic algorithms start with large numbers, and they try to the technique is based on not being able to guess the various factors of the number. Cryptography is a very common use of this. Fine. Of course, all these choices are, I just added these to confuse you. But actually, you can just look at these and you will be able to say that none of them are correct, because LCM of n and d, you see that it is either 2 or 1 or d, so it cannot be the LCM. Choice number C, you have to think a little bit. and A and C are essentially similar. And so the correct answer is none of the above. Fine, let me go to the next one. Yeah, what was this? This was, I've given the algorithm again here. This was to compare. You're given an array of n elements, 1 to n. And what is this algorithm doing?
Finding the
It is
max.
finding the maximum number in a
Yeah, it
particular
is just
array.
finding the maximum number in an array. Yeah, it is given an array, you have to find out the maximum number. Right, very simple algorithm. There's nothing much here. So what are the choices? If the array has n elements, there will always be n minus 1 comparisons. If the array has n elements, you will have to compare n minus 1 times. That is minimum. You have to, because you have to go through the entire array. And if you are assigning max to be the first element, then definitely it is n minus 1. You have to have n minus 1 comparisons. The confusing option was at most n minus 1 comparisons. So this is not correct, because at most n minus 1 means you could have 1 comparison, you could have 2 comparisons, 3 comparisons, so on up to n minus 1. So at most is not correct. So it has to be n minus 1.
So we can say exactly n minus 1
And of course,
comparisons.
second, yeah, that's what it is. There are n minus 1 comparisons. Yes. That is the correct option.
Excuse me, sir.
And the second one, yeah.
Sir, in the for loop, we are assigning I is equal to 2. So, sir, how are we comparing it n minus 1 times?
You count and see. Suppose n is 5. So you have to compare 2, 3, 4, 5. 4 comparisons you have to make.
But in for the last one isn't included.
Sorry?
Sir, in for loop, the last one is
This
not
is not
included. So
this is not Python. This is not Python. This is pseudocode. The array starts from 1 to n.
But this looks more like a Python code only because we are using for loop.
yes, though
This is
it
pseudocode.
is.
So that confused.
You see how the array starts. The array starts from 1. It is not A0. It is starting from 1 to n. So it is, there are n elements here.
So, but actually, though it
Don't
is
get confused with
pseudocode, but still,
So that
as
means
for was
that your
written, so we
comparisons are starting
assume that.
from I equal to 1. I
one
equal
person has
to,
to. One person has.
yes, sir. So I am asking in the for loop. So in the pseudocode, we are saying that I is ranging from 1 to n, but a1 has been already assigned to max, so that is why n minus 1 comparison.
Sorry.
Sir,
No. Even if it is.
do we had zeros
See, if
indexing?
you want to compare, there is no 0. First of all, there is no 0 in the array. Array starting from 1. That's fine. Array starting from 1 to n. So all the numbers a1 to a3 up to an have some values. Now you have to compare, to find out the maximum. You have to compare 1 with 2. You have to compare. You have to compare 1 and 2 and find out which is the maximum. Then you have to compare that maximum with 3 and find out which is the maximum. You have to compare that maximum with 4. So the number of comparisons, for example, you want to add two numbers, a and b, right? How many additions are needed to add a and b? For adding two numbers, you need one addition. Similarly, so that is to compare n numbers, or to find out the maximum in n numbers, you must have n minus 1 comparisons. Comparison is a binary operator, right? So there will be one less.
Yes, sir. The confusion was only about the indexing. After knowing where the indexing is starting, so then it is straightforward.
Yeah, straightforward. So Fine. So don't get confused with where the array is starting. I mean, so in Python, yes, it is starting at 0, but maybe in some other languages, for example, if you do work in MATLAB or something, MATLAB starts from 1. That's okay, but by looking at the data structure provided to you, you must be able to work out the logic. Okay.
Yes, sir, but there was 4 written, so it seemed like it would also, the code would also follow the rule of not including the last digit.
No, you shouldn't think that. You shouldn't think like that. Anyway, see, if you have arrays, I mean the numbers from 1 to n, if it not include n, then you are going only up to n minus 1. So the last element is not considered at all, which is not right.
Okay, sir.
Fine, let's go to the next one. Yeah, this one is interesting. You have to think a little bit, but once you get it, it is straightforward. So there are marks. I gave you some hints also. I've said that it is integer marks. Marks are ranging from 0 to 100. We have initialized h, and again the loop goes from 1 to n. Okay, there are n marks. So you, and the array here also is starting from 1. So that is why it is going from 1 to n. Although I have not specified that, but that is clear from the context. I mean, like there are n marks, and it is the loop is going from 1 to n. So that means it starts from 1 and it stops at n, including n. Then what am I doing? H of ai is equal to h of ai plus 1. So essentially, what are we doing here? We have initialized h with zeros, and every element of h is getting incremented by the corresponding value in ai. So essentially, you're making a count. H is like some placeholder. No, H is like an array which is a placeholder, which is by going through the entire array A, you are incrementing values of H. Okay, and so the correct option is the above algorithm is related to the frequency table of the data. It is actually a histogram. It is essentially computing a histogram. It is count the number of times each mark occurs, and whenever the mark occurs, that particular cell in H gets updated by 1. So A is the correct option. It is. I wrote it as histogram, then I changed it to frequency table. Okay. Second choice B is not correct, because assuming that the algorithm is right, the number of elements in H is 100. Why is this option not correct? Why is B not correct?
Sir, because it depends on how much numbers we input into the array. If we input
No, that
50 elements, then
you right. Then n is given to you. No, that does not depend on the. That does not depend on how many elements are there in the marks. I mean, how many elements are there in the mark? That does not depend on that. If you, the reason you have said that is because you have not understood what I said. Okay, maybe I should have drawn it here. My mistake.
So 101 entries maybe.
It should have 101. Correct. It should have 101 elements. What are the 101 elements?
0 to 100.
0 to 100.
Yeah, it should have 0 to 100. So H should have 101 elements. Okay. And so the implementation of the algorithm used for processing the above marks, number C, cannot be used to process the heights, because now I've
Sir,
told
I
that
have a
heights are
doubt.
integer values. Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, it should have or can have. They are saying that the marks are ranging from 0 to 100. So it is not compulsory that all the values from 0 to 100 come in the array A. It might be possible that
Need
15
not
won't
be.
be there as a mark.
That is correct. But then in those values, we have already initialized H with zeros. So those count will be 0. That is true.
Okay, sir.
And sir, our for loop is not accommodating the 0 mark because the iterator is starting from 1.
No, it is looking at A. The for loop is reading the elements of A.
Yes,
If
sir. I get that.
if any of AI is 0, then it will update the corresponding value in H.
Sir, so what? So where is our indexing starting from here? Does it include 0? Like in A, if there are 101 terms including 0, so then our for loop, so I is not starting from 0, right, sir?
See, the A is starting 1 to 100. Okay, I mean 1 to n.
Yes,
A is starting from 1 to n.
yes, sir.
Means of
So
starting
what
from
does
1
this
to
mean?
n.
So H of 1 will contain A of 0. I mean, how many times 0 has occurred? H of 2 will contain how many times 1 has occurred, and so on.
So can you
Fine.
explain that a little bit better?
So
I did not
H of
understand that. I did not understand that, sir.
So the number of times 0 has occurred will be stored in H of 1. Number of times 1 has occurred will be stored in H of 2.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
And of course, this now option C, you cannot use it for heights for this, because I've said that the same algorithm, same implementation cannot be used. I mean, I've said that the implementation is the same, so can it be used for heights? So it cannot be used for heights because H is only now 101 elements, so it can only represent 0 to 100. It cannot represent things like 110 and 120 and all. So C is also correct. It cannot be used for processing heights. It can only process data in the range 0 to 100, basically. And D option is, of course, wrong. It contains the total marks of the students. No, that is not correct. Okay, code it up and see. Code it up and see, you'll get. But this is, of course, very restricted. This is not. This kind of histogramming can work only if you know the range of data beforehand. Oh, what is this? Yeah, the bin size here is 1. Okay. Cannot be used for heights. Okay, this question, a lot of people had queries. Consumption of whole milk and low fat milk. Okay, I've also said that there are only two types of milk available. Choose all the right options. So if you basically if you go through the option again, the word correlation already comes there, but you can also I mean, so if you code it up, just make an array with these 6 numbers, and if you find out the correlation coefficient is minus 0.97. Correlation coefficient is minus 0.97. Okay, so option B says there is a weak negative correlation. Minus 0.97 is not weak negative correlation, it's strong negative correlation. It is strong negative correlation.
So then what will be a weak negative correlation? An example for that?
Negative correlation may be minus 0.2 or something like that. 0.1, minus 0.1, minus 0.2. Because correlation values range from -1 to 1, right? And 1 is high positive correlation. -1 is high. I mean, the maximum negative correlation is -1. So weak correlation is around the values will hover around 0. So that is weak correlation.
Sir, we have never
So this
studied
is
this
high
parameter
correlation.
before.
I covered it in class. No, we have covered about correlation coefficients. You did a lab assignment. Astrid asked you lab assignment. You did even,
No,
I
sir,
think,
there
even
is no
Arnav.
correlation.
Huh?
Sir,
Sir,
there wasn't anything regarding correlation. I'm sorry if
That is
I'm saying
correlation. Yes, we've studied correlation. Right? We have studied correlation in class, right?
Yes, sir,
Yes or
we
no?
had done it.
Yes, sir, we have done.
But there
But
wasn't enough
that's
time
taught in
that we
class.
calculated its value. We
Yes,
had
sir.
Sorry?
directly seen whether it's decreasing or increasing.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, I didn't hear. What did you say?
Actually, in exam, we didn't have that much time to calculate its exact value. So we checked whether it was increasing or decreasing. One was increasing and other was decreasing.
I gave the reason was I gave only 6 numbers. So 6 numbers, if you put it in a matrix, you should be able to calculate.
So, but we hadn't written that code earlier in our Python, in our IDE. So we couldn't. We had to calculate it.
Mm-hmm.
So it
Sir,
would
it was
have
very
taken
hard to
a lot of
calculate
time.
in this less time.
Had 15 minutes to do so.
15 minutes, 8 questions. Some of the choices were okay. So in some sense, I am putting you under a little bit of pressure here because I am hoping that less time means cheating, but I don't know how useful that strategy is, but we'll see. Okay, yeah, maybe entering it might have taken a little bit of time. I do agree on that. But anyway, the options were, now if you know this correlation coefficient, then the choices B and C can be eliminated. And the data indicates when people consume, I mean, like, so basically the meaning of this high negative correlation is when one increases, the other decreases. So that means the first option is correct. It is when people consume one type of milk, they do not consume the other type of milk.
So, but this is also not exactly true now, because they have given us the numbers and the total is doesn't sum up to 100. So it may be possible that they consume both.
No, why
Yes, sir.
should
Do not consume the other type of milk means that the
why should the
consumption
adding up to
quantity is
100 and
zero.
all come here? What did you mean by adding up to 100? There's nothing to do with 100 here.
So if we consider them to be percentage, because it is not mentioned that what are the values 17.1 and other figures, what they represent exactly.
I didn't understand. Can you repeat that again?
True, then
So like they have just given the figure 17.1 and the other ones, but they haven't mentioned that what they exactly represent. The
What
percentage
they?
of people exactly represent the percentage of people or the number or what.
No, there is nothing about people here. Only consumption numbers are given to you. Are you saying the units are not given? Kilograms or liters or million liters or whatever it is.
Yes, sir.
Why are you
Because
bringing in additional? No. Why are you bringing in additional things here? Nobody said anything about people or whether you just look at the data and you say what you can interpret from the data.
so, but that also doesn't mean that they can't consume both of them.
No, it's nothing about people consuming what. We are only saying consumption here means how much is getting sold. It's not about whether people is drinking one milk or having both milks. That is not what it. That is an external factor which you don't have to bring in here. This is
So,
only
but
saying how much
then,
is getting sold.
so, but then how can we conclude that the answer is A if we don't
So,
do it by exclusion?
so there is
Yes,
like
sir.
a slight ambiguity with the word do not. Like
Yes, sir.
they
Because
do
sir,
not,
in
like
the
they consume less
from
and
the
they do not consume. It's different things.
yes,
instead of
sir,
do
from
not,
the
it should
data we can see that
consumption
one
has decreased.
consumption of one decreases and others consumption increases, but it does not
Hmm.
say that others consumption because becomes null or zero.
No, it's nothing about consumption becoming zero. We are
The word do not makes some
No, why
little bit
did you say the
confusing.
the mm,
The later statement says that they do not consume the other type of milk, that seems that the consumption of other type of milk becomes zero.
Sir,
no,
do
I
the
don't think it
negative
means that.
correlation, excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, do the negative correlation always means the option A?
Hmm.
Does it
Are you
happen
asking?
when
Are you
we
are you asking? Are you asking me a
Yes,
question?
sir.
Are you
Yes, sir.
asking or are you saying something?
Asking, sir.
What are you asking?
Sir, do the negative correlation always means the option A?
Do negative correlation is option A. A negative correlation means when one variable increases, the other decreases.
So
I
then
think
how
he's
can we say
telling
for
a
option?
strong negative correlation. Then does it mean option A, or even if there is weak negative correlation, then also it will mean option A?
Okay, you're catching on to the word do not. You're saying that do not mean their consumption is zero. That is what you're saying.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Okay. Maybe when I think about it again, and now thinking about what you said, maybe there is some ambiguity there. Maybe the wording
Yes,
could
sir.
have been better. Maybe the wording could have been better. Okay, so let me think it over. Let me talk to some other person and get one more opinion, and then I will see what to do. Okay. Yeah, maybe the wording could have been better. Maybe I should have said when people
Yes, sir.
ideally maybe I should have said
And sir,
when the consumption of when the consumption of one increases, the consumption of the other decreases or something. I should have said something like that maybe.
yes, sir.
But anyway,
And because of
yeah.
that,
But
we
see,
mark
you
the
guys
option
are
B as correct option because we were getting negative correlation.
haggling for you guys are haggling. You guys are haggling for marks. You in the previous thing you said you didn't have time to enter the data, but now here you're having time to analyze the text. So we'll see. I know you are all harping only for marks. Most of you are like half a mark, 0.1 mark, 0.25 marks. So
Sir,
we'll see.
actually,
I will
I
see.
Because
thought
some of the student might be coding it, coding the data above, and some of the student might be analyzing the data. So sir, it's the different scenario for different students.
Yeah,
yes.
that's okay.
Sir,
I understand your situation. What?
Sir, also because once we discarded A, as we got a negative correlation, we decided to go with B option, though it wasn't that weak.
Okay, we'll see. I will give you a benefit of doubt, and I will think whether what to do, and based on that, I may or may not do some action. Okay. So there's no guarantee. We'll see. We'll see. I will get somebody else's opinion also, and then I will see. But anyway, you understood how it is solved and how you are how you are reaching the answer. Is that fine?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. See, you must realize the objective of my course is to teach you programming. Okay. It is not a for it is not to facilitate branch change. Branch change is the least of my worries. It may be your primary worry, but it is for me that is not the case. So I am trying to test your understanding. Okay. Anyway, time is going. Let's go to the next one. So I think today also we'll spend the whole time in quiz. Okay, so these are two scatter plots from college campuses 1, which is the top plot, and college campus 2, which is the bottom plot. And I've also said both colleges admit only male students. Okay, so all these are men. Now choose all the right statements. What can you say?
Yeah,
So I
so
put
we
height
can
and
simply
weight.
say that in first one there is less diversity, whereas in second one there is it is very sparse. There is higher diversity.
Yeah, so first one is, so if you compare the weight and height, so the first college, that is the top college, you can see two distinct clusters of points. So that means most of the population in college campus 1 are from two, I mean, most of the students are from two populations. Maybe there are some tall and fat people, and there are some not so tall and not so fat people. Maybe like Dutchmen, and maybe some Dutch people, and maybe some Latinos, for example. Okay, Dutch and Latinos. So because Dutch people are generally taller and broader, maybe that's simple. So maybe that is why there are two distinct clusters. So it's almost like that. The first college admits only, or most of the population is only either from Scandinavia or from Latin America. Whereas the second college is, you can see that there is a broad distribution of height and weight. So that means people of varying heights and varying weights are there. So that is, the population is more diverse. So the only option correct is A. That those two clusters should give you the hint of what should be the correct answer. Okay, all the other options are not correct. Anyway, B is just the inverse of A. C, we cannot make out anything, that is also wrong, because we definitely can see two clusters in the first plot. And on an average, students of college 1 are taller than students of college 2. That also you cannot say, because the college 2 also has large variation in height. There are people as tall as people in college 1. So we cannot say that they are taller. Yes, somebody had a question. Any questions on this? Can we go ahead?
Yes.
Okay, I can't hear if anybody is saying. The next question was this. This is straight. I think most of you got it. So this is nothing but a dictionary, and dictionary is a mutable object. So we have just changed the entry, right? D of A is now giving you 13. 13 should be the correct answer.
So I had a doubt that keys are immutable, means I can't understand how these work.
Dictionary is like a list, right? In Python, dictionary is like a list. So
Yes,
the
sir.
contents of the dictionary can change. So that's what you're doing here. In the beginning, dictionary A, it contains only one element. The key is A, the value is 5. Then we have updated the value corresponding to A. From 5, we have changed it to 13. So if you print D of A, you will get 13. So it is updated.
So the keys are immutable. So what we meant by the
Keys are immutable in the sense, keys, any immutable type can become a key. For example, here the key is a string. A is a string. So string is not mutable. So the key changing here. Only the associated value associated with the key is changing. I mean, like the content of the dictionary is changing. Because the key is of an immutable type.
Okay, sir, understood, sir.
Okay, I think last question was this. This one is about scope. So why is this error coming? Because here what I have done is, I have, before this in line 72, what I wrote was ABS equal to 5. Okay, I put ABS equal to 5. So that means ABS is a function, is a built-in function. The name of the function is in the built-in scope. So by putting ABS to 5, I have removed the built-in function. That namespace is changed to a local variable. ABS now becomes a local variable. LEGB rules. Now ABS becomes a local variable. And so when you do now in line 73, we are using ABS as if it is the built-in function. We are finding out the absolute value of 3. So it is complaining that ABS is a integer object because it checks the local scope first. So it locally finds that ABS is integer, and so that's why it is saying integer is not callable. It's like you're calling a function within an integer. You're calling a integer function. I mean, like, it is not a function, right? So there are two choices here. ABS is an integer here, and there is also a problem with scope. So both of them you have to select to get the full marks.
But as we were not able to see the 72nd line, how could we conclude that there is some problem with scope?
That is what you have to figure out. As a programmer, if you see this kind of error, you should know that there is a problem with scope, because I've already told you that it is a built-in function, and immediately you should know that this is this error, because it is already saying int object is not callable. That means it is considering ABS as a integer. So that means there is a problem with scope, because ABS is a built-in function.
So maybe we can find out that in line 1, we have assigned something to ABS, as it is written file and then it is written line 1. So will it be correct to assume that?
Sorry.
So in the error, we are given file, then IPython input, and then it is given line 1 in module ABS3. So here can we assume that in the in line 1 we have assigned ABS to some other variable, and that's why it is not
No. That
coming.
line, no. That line 1, I think, probably means the line 1 in some module inside Python. That is nothing to do with what I have written.
Okay.
When
So
it is
thank you.
since it is a interpreted language, when you call in line 73, it goes to that. It goes to the it resolved what is ABS, and that resolution is, I think, happening in line 1. That line 1 is something to do with the where it is implemented. It is nothing to do with the code which we have written. No, because this is done in IPython. It
Thank
is
you,
not
sir.
really a Python script. So I'm not sure how IPython is resolving the.
Okay,
So
thank you,
could
sir.
you please explain the B part again, that why ABS, what is the relation between ABS is an integer and type error?
What is the relationship between?
That ABS is an integer and we get this type error.
Yeah, ABS is a integer here because see that you should get it from the error which you're getting. It is saying int object is not callable. Okay, so when you in line 73, when you're doing ABS of 3, it's like you're calling some function. Actually what you're trying to do is you're actually trying to call the ABS function with the argument 3. But already we have changed what ABS means. So and that from that error you should understand that ABS has been defined as an integer here. That is why it is saying int object is not callable, because you are calling an integer object here. You are doing int of 4 or something, int of 3 here. That's what you're trying to do here. You're saying some variable which is a integer, you're calling a function which is actually an integer. You're not calling a function, you're calling an integer, which is not possible. You cannot call an integer, right? Integer is an object. Integer is not a function. So that's why it's saying int object is not callable.
Okay, sir. Got it. Thank you, sir.
Sir, here, for example, if we have assigned ABS to 5, then can we infer that ABS of 3 here means 5 of 3?
Yes, you are calling 5 of 3, which doesn't make sense, right?
Okay, thank you, sir.
So it's not really correct, because you really cannot say 5 of 3, because I mean, like integer is also an object, Ethan. So you're looking for some function which is invoking an integer. Such a function does not exist, because integers have some built-in methods, no, in max or something. So if you see the int object, there must be some built-in method. So if you call one of those methods, then it is fine. But now when you're calling it like this, so in principle, yes, what you're saying is correct. It is, we are doing like 5 of 3, which is not correct.
Sir, could you please tell what happened in this line 72?
In line
72 means what was written initially.
I did only ABS equal to 5 or something. I must have assigned ABS to some integer value so that I wanted to override the built-in scope. I overrode the built-in scope.
So for all the built-in functions, we don't have to import any library.
No, we don't have to put in any library. That is why your length, min, max, ABS, all of them are working without any importing.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So again, one full lecture we have devoted to quiz, but that's okay. So I will upload the marks on Moodle, and these slides also I can upload. Huh?
Sir, I had a request. It is not about any test or anything.
Yeah.
Sir, I wanted to request that in class, instead of teaching us with snapshots of code, could you please code live so that we can see how things are being coded and they are performing live? Because otherwise, it takes a lot of time.
I wish I could do that, but it just takes too much time. That is the problem. Typing, coding. So if I'm doing it live, it will just take too much time, because many times I have to try various permutations and combinations of the code to get my message across, or try to write the code in such a way that whatever I want to convey is coming properly. So if I do it live, it will just take too much time, because I'll have to change and back and all that. So it will just take too much time.
Okay, sir. So I was
That is a
only saying
limitation.
because this way we are missing out on a lot of nuances. Because just like this ABS, this might be trivial, and it is trivial, but when we study these small things, just slip out of the head. So they never stay at the top of the head. That is the problem. So if things were being coded live, then it would stay better.
Yeah, but that is a practical problem. I cannot do that live because it will just take too much time. Because first of all, it's an online thing. Even if class is offline, I mean, if you're here physically also, I wouldn't be able to code it live because it will just take too much time. So for every plot I generate or every code snippet that I show you, I do spend a lot of time trying to see them if the message I want to convey is coming across. So that takes time, and so I just cannot do it live. The only way, and in fact, this particular point about this ABS and about how to be careful about built-in scope, I had mentioned it specifically in the slide. I mean, if you see the scope slides, I think towards the end of the lecture somewhere I had mentioned that be careful and do not rename or do not override the built-in scope. Some line I had mentioned. Okay, so these are, and of course this will come with experience, especially if people are new to coding. I mean, these kind of nuances will come only with experience, and I do not claim to be a great Python coder or great coder. In fact, okay, I have been coding for many. I have not been coding for many years. I used to code more actively earlier, but once you start teaching, you don't get so much time. My objective is to all my time is spent on trying to make slides and all the other things. Coding, I hardly do much any coding these days. So if you want to really learn coding, you should team up with your seniors and be active in some of the programming clubs which are very active in IIT Mandi. This command prompts, for example, that is so. I can only teach you some basic things, but if you want to really know coding and get into be active in coding, take part in some open source project. Be active in some coding club or something like that. That will do it better.
Okay, sir.
And of course, it comes with experience. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Sir,
Fine.
I
So
wanted
let's
to
stop
say,
here. Yeah. Go ahead.
Sir, can you improve your way of teaching, like the functions which you show in your code? can you explain them also in detail so that we don't have to look them on Google, etc.?
No, the idea is that whatever I've shown you, code snippet, whatever I've shown you, the idea is that you have to go back, you have to implement it yourself and play around with it, make some small changes and see what happens if something gets changed. Okay, because like I said, Python being very actively developed language, it is still being under active development. Things keep changing so fast. I mean, like whatever we teach today, maybe next year if in this course many things would have changed, because Python right now we are looking at Python 3. Next year there may be some Python 4. Then many of the things will change. So it is, personally I feel that makes sense to go into detail about certain functions, or go into details about properties of some functions, because those are always anyway in the documentation. You should keep looking at the latest, I mean the documentation pertaining to the version of Python you're using. And so doesn't make sense to go too much detail explaining all arguments of the function, all possible arguments. It is more useful to understand what is the thought process behind this. Why are we doing this? Okay, and so how you should be getting this is, for example, if you're doing some development, if you're coding something, immediately your mind should say that, okay, I need a function which has this kind of which looks like this and performs like this. Signature of the function is like this. This is the kind of function signature that I want. And then you should look up in the documentation or check up in Google forums or wherever and find out whether such a function exists and use that function. So I feel personally there is no point in explaining more about particular type of functions, because like I said, it is there today, it won't be there tomorrow. So concentrate more on concentrate more on the thought process. Why did we have such a function? What is the purpose of such a function? And even when you code, you should get that feeling. What to do this, need this kind of a function. So functions are just tools for you to use. So you should become the workman, not the tool. And a skilled workman knows what tools to use. Similarly, a skilled coder will know what functions to use. I mean, like will know what type of function he or she wants. Then look up at the documentation and find out what is exactly the function which will suit that role. So think more, spend more time on the design rather than on how you implement. That is my take on it. Okay,
And
but
sir, please
anyway,
increase the deadline for lab 5.
Yeah. See, in principle, only HackerRank, because if the deadline is set, that deadline automatically closes. But in Moodle, I'm telling you, if even if you submit things late, it should be fine. There is no problem. There is only 1 mark per lab, and we don't have the time, and it's not worth our time to go and see whether you've got half a mark or whether you get 0.25 marks. If you submitted something, if it is late on Moodle, you will get that 1 mark. Okay, this is again an incentive not to copy your lab assignments. Even if you submit it late, even if you it partially, it is fine. You will get that mark. So anyway, I will inform them also. So in HackerRank, because we have no control. I think once the deadline is set, I don't think we can extend it. That is the only problem in HackerRank. Okay, it's already 11:01, so it's time for your next class. So I think I'll quit. I'll go now. Okay. So I'll catch you guys tomorrow morning.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, guys. Yeah, bye.
Thank you, sir.